Kaya Biz.
Business, so you gotta pay me.
With Gugu Mfuphi.
I'm excited for this conversation as we're joined by Jameel Khan, Executive Director and co-founder of Unconventional CA, a startup advocacy organization. Such a pleasure to have you with us on the show again, Jameel. Welcome back. Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having me again, Gugu. Looking forward to the conversation.
Oh my goodness. As you can tell, we've spoken to the regulators and the lawyers. We've spoken to the technology entrepreneurs and experts. And we've even gotten some insight as to what this does, what the new policy means for all of us as everyday South Africans. But maybe let's talk about AI for entrepreneurs. I know of tools like Monday, Calendly. Many of us use Perplexity and all these other tools that are meant to drive productivity, increase revenue. But maybe help us contextualize the true cost of AI for a business. Number one, do we need it? Is it worth it? And what do the numbers reveal?
Thanks, Gugu. Yeah, look, I mean, it's a fascinating conversation. I think, if we start the conversation from the top, we know that a lot of international organizations have invested heavily into AI, right? You've got Grok, you've got Claude, you've got OpenAI, and all of them are vying for users. Right? They need to generate a return and generate users, and people have to subscribe because they have investors to look after, right? And so, we find a lot of the time entrepreneurs get, locked into that, the notion or the message that if you're not subscribing to all of these things, you're falling behind the curve, right? And, the general public, in general, a lot of people feel that way. I think I'm behind the curve in terms of AI, right? So what do? We go out and we subscribe. Now, you've got these competing models. So you got the Claude, the OpenAI, etc. But what we're seeing is that a lot of SMEs and entrepreneurs are not actually thinking, well, what am I investing in, number one? And how am I measuring this return on investment, right? So, I've kind of broken it down into sort of three themes, right? The first thing is it's AI in its current form is relatively new. So there is like a R&D cost, right? So you have to invest in a tool, experiment with it, play with it and see, does this suit me and does this suit my business, right? So you're investing your time, number one, as well as number two, the cost of the AI, right? And what we're saying, and then we look at point two and point three, right? Point two is now a focus on, okay, how do I use AI and AI tools to, number one, improve efficiency in my business, right? So if it's saving time on a particular area, like you said, Monday.com or these project management tools, it's saving time for my team. We need to understand, well, how much time can we save using this technology, right? So that's an internal look into your business and how am I using AI to save hours, right, for the employees. The other thing on internal is then how am I adding additional value to my clients, right? So if I have to do this report that used to take me 5 hours and now I'm doing it now through a particular large language model, it's taking me 20 minutes, but it's making the report better, it's adding in research, it's adding in all these cool things. I can add additional value to my clients.
Yes.
And it's that sort of now touching on the top line, right? Because your clients are seeing enhanced value. Potentially, you could adjust your pricing accordingly. So that's sort of the second part, right? Then the third part is now where we need to look at AI and say, how is this going to change my business model going forward? And here, not a lot of, very few entrepreneurs are looking at this, right? To say, to take a step back and say, is my business going to be relevant in 5 years because of AI, right? And now you're starting to look into the future. Like, how do I adjust my business model to either incorporate AI fully? How do I adjust my business model to transform my product using AI? How do I change my entire business?
And maybe
that's the disruptive part.
Yes, I was about to say, Jameel, because just to get an entrepreneur, number one, to sit down and think is already tough. But to think about how AI will change their business in the next 5 years, that's already disruptive because it's literally saying, I need to evolve, I need to adapt, I need to implement a new strategy now that will keep me relevant in the future. And how do we need to think about that? I'm thinking about that as myself right now as an entrepreneur, and I'm thinking, geez, Jameel, you're making me think hard. But give us some context and perspective there, right? So that we're not frightened by the idea, but actually encouraged about the potential it can unlock.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I'm a big fan of John Sane, and I mean, what John talks about is,
Yes.
he's like the number 4 futurist in the world.
Yeah.
But what he talks about is awareness, like trying to be aware, right, of what is happening around us, right? And as entrepreneurs, we have to have some form of the skill, right? Because business is continuously changing.
Yeah.
We have to be open to opportunity, exploration, etc. And that awareness part needs to come in. So I think at the core, it's trying to transform potentially what might be fear into excitement. He talks about being comfortable with the uncertain, right? Something like that is we need to start being comfortable that we need to start becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes.
So it's about allowing uncertainty, like we don't know what 5 years is going to look like, but we have to just remain aware and be open to when opportunity, when change, when that idea hits us, that we're ready to change and evolve our business going forward. But Gugu, you touched on something important, right? Is I got to point 3, and point 3, it was like, actually, there's a lot to think about, right? So what we need to be doing right now is point 1 and point 2, right? Just exploring, experimenting, trying to get comfortable with how AI can change internally our business and focusing on our clients. And I think that's when point 3 comes into it, is once you start to work with these tools, you start to insert a few of them in your business, you start to see the productivity enhancements, you'll then start to automatically unlock time and unlock awareness to then say, okay, cool, this is where I think my business is going into the future, and how do I marry that with AI? Because at the same time, I mean, AI doubles in intelligence, I think it's every 3 months or 6 months.
Right.
So there's so much which is coming out, especially on the agentic AI side with workflow processes, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just something we need to be aware of in the space. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad you touch on it, because there's also a key theme that you've mentioned, that small businesses budget for tools, but they don't budget for outcomes. And I think this again takes us to a very practical view of what it is that we should be looking for as our entrepreneurs when we use or adopt these AI tools to, number one, get an understanding of them, but also perhaps probe, challenge, and rethink what the future of AI, or of our businesses rather, could look like when coupled with AI.
Yeah, correct. I think that the idea of putting, and once again, it takes time. As we're having this conversation, I keep thinking you hit the nail on the head, right? Most entrepreneurs we talk to are like, you know what, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that, but we have to create the time. Right? It's something that's going to be important, is important for business and in general, right? So we need to take time to understand, like I said, that first part, R&D, you're exploring, you're experimenting, you're seeing what's out there, you're reading. Typically, I advise entrepreneurs to try and stick to one tool, because it can get very confusing if you're reading stuff about...
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you're reading stuff about Claude, and then you're reading stuff about OpenAI, and then you're reading stuff about Grok, because remember, they're all sort of competing with each other.
Yes.
So even if there's a key enhancement that comes out, the likelihood of the other technology to take that up is probably going to happen, right? And so at least get comfortable with one, and then start to understand and go deep in, because then you can see what sort of tools you can add on. So with Claude, you got Claude Code, you got various other things that you can sort of bolt on and create different processes for yourself. So focus on one, try to go in a little bit deeper, and then start to see, where's this thing, what is it trying to do for my business, right? If it's trying to enhance productivity, okay, cool, let me bring my ops manager in. Let's figure out, let's sit down, let's see what sort of outcome we want to achieve. So on a specific project, we want to save 4 hours on this particular task. Let's do that. And then quantify it, right? That's how you're quantifying your return on investment.
Got you.
If it used to take me 6 hours, now it's taking me 1 hour, I'm saving 5 hours. What can I do with that additional 5 hours? What is the cost of those 5 hours? Because all of that is return, right? It's not just monetary, but it's also time. And so I think if being deliberate in this sort of way will also help you not spend too much cost, because if you've got a team, as an SME, maybe you've got between 5 and 10 entrepreneurs, right? If you're going to get subscriptions for everyone, just off the bat, they first need to learn how to use the technology. They need to know how it's going to change their job or adapt their job. They need to know how to, and we as entrepreneurs have to be leading this process.
Yes.
Because if we're just going to give people subscriptions and hope that they're going to figure their job out and it's going to make their life easier, the reality is it's not. And all we're doing is just spending money on tools and not knowing what is the outcomes that are being achieved in these different segments.
Exactly. I'm glad that you highlight that, because I'm one of those, I think I'm subscribed to like 3 platforms, but I know which ones to use for what outcomes I want. So I don't know if that's a good thing, or if it does just maybe speak to my very inquisitive mind. But Jameel, I guess before we let you go, of course, the draft policy is a big one to focus on. It's just recently been released. Your thoughts on it, but more so what we as entrepreneurs need to be mindful about the feedback that we can share.
To be honest, Gugu, I haven't actually read the draft policy yet, so I'm not going to comment on that. But I imagine
there's an AI to summarize
some of
it,
the
I'm
other
sure.
speakers. Yeah, correct. Actually, it's a good idea to do that. Yeah. Look, I think policy frameworks, etc. All of these things are built to sort of govern. I think and by no means, look, I'm also subscribed to 2 different tools. I follow 2 different things as well. So like you said, it's just the curious mind, right? Yeah. But I think more recently now I've been subscribed to one newsletter that's been giving me good information to go deeper on one tool. And, we don't have unlimited hours in the day. So I've kind of just taken that step back to say, let me just focus, go deep into this, really understand what I can integrate, so that's really the only way you can get ahead of the curve, right? Otherwise, all we're doing is listening to everybody else and creating noise for ourselves and just burning our time,
100%. I'm so glad you mentioned that. Spoken like a true entrepreneur, an unconventional CA who wants to do things more effectively, efficiently, and of course, just get all of us performing at our best. So really, really appreciate your time this evening, Jameel. And I guess more entrepreneurs can reach out to you on your platform to seek some support, unconventionalca.org.
Yes. They're more than welcome to. I mean, there's a bunch of AI tools that we're launching soon as well. Please do follow us at unconventionalca.org. We're most active on LinkedIn, so follow us on LinkedIn and you can see what other cool stuff we're doing for entrepreneurs there.
Perfect. Awesome. We'll be sure to do so. All the necessary support, streamlining, strategy, finance, and of course, a lot of the typical stuff that entrepreneurs are challenged by. A lot of support that's offered there. Thank you again for your time this evening, Jameel. Really, really appreciate it, sir.
Thank you very much, Gugu, and keep up the awesome show.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.